The Crucible of Destiny, Navigating Transit Pluto Square Natal Rahu. In evolutionary and psychological astrology, transit Pluto forming a square to your natal Rahu, the north node of the moon, represents one of the most intense, fateful, and radically transformative evolutionary crossroads you will ever experience. In the karmic framework, natal Rahu represents your primary evolutionary trajectory in this lifetime, your future direction, soul growth, unfamiliar territories of personal development, and the compelling hunger driving you toward your highest potential. Natal Ketu, the south node, sitting directly opposite Rahu, represents your comfortable past life conditioning, ingrained habits, and outgrown instinctual safety nets. Pluto is the transpersonal force of primal subterranean power, shadow integration, systemic dismantling, and absolute rebirth. When transit Pluto forms a tense, dynamic square to your nodal axis, it creates what astrologers call a Pluto at the bending. This alignment places Pluto at the midpoint between your past conditioning and your future evolutionary growth, creating an intense karmic pressure chamber. Pluto plunges your long-term ambitions, subconscious motivations, life trajectory, and karmic comfort zones into an alchemical furnace to burn away superficial desires, destructive obsessions, and fear-based hesitation. Because the square aspect generates inescapable internal and external friction, this transit acts as an uncompromising evolutionary stress test, demanding that you relinquish outgrown karmic safety nets and align directly with your authentic soul purpose. 1. The Crucible of Karmic Reiteration and Shadow Integration. The primary hallmark of transit Pluto square natal Rahu is a profound existential reckoning characterized by the disruption of your current life trajectory. The subconscious habits of the south node, Ketu, and the chaotic, hungry pursuits of the north node, Rahu, are simultaneously dragged into Pluto's penetrating spotlight. This tense alignment restructures your evolutionary baseline across every front. Purging unconscious survival instincts, you become acutely aware of where your ambition, Rahu, was driven by egoic greed, fear of powerlessness, or a desperate need to compensate for past life insecurities. Pluto systematically strips away these false motivations, forcing you to pursue soul growth from a place of pure integrity rather than frantic compulsion. Confronting subterranean karmic shadows, unconscious fears of stepping into your destiny, latent self-sabotage, or deep-seated terror of the unknown surface with volcanic intensity. Facing these raw subterranean shadows directly allows you to integrate your shadow self rather than remaining trapped in repetitive karmic loops. 2. Transmuting ambition, power dynamics, and evolutionary alignment. Rahu governs your hunger for expansion and unfamiliar future horizons, while Pluto demands total psychological truth and structural depth. As Pluto squares your natal Rahu, your tolerance for superficial goals, disempowering societal scripts, or manipulative shortcuts vanishes entirely. Your relationship with power, ambition, and long-term trajectory undergoes a monumental shift. Dismantling manipulative control and shortcuts, you are brought face-to-face with intense power struggles, whether dealing with external authority figures blocking your progress or recognizing your own urge to force outcomes out of fear of failure. Pluto exposes where you have tried to take shortcuts on your evolutionary path, demanding total authenticity. Reclaiming sovereign life purpose, you stop seeking permission to pursue your authentic calling or hiding in the comfortable, familiar patterns of the past. This transit empowers you to step into formidable self-mastery, strategic clarity, and unshakable alignment with your soul's true destiny. 3. Psychospiritual realignment and evolutionary rebirth. Beyond restructuring your external goals, this alignment triggers a total psychospiritual overhaul, burning out accumulated karmic debris, unconscious fear, and outdated identity layers from your core psyche. You experience a complete realignment of your life trajectory. Purging accumulated karmic debris to rebuild path, the sheer weight of Plutonian friction can feel overwhelming if you attempt to cling frantically to south node comfort zones or force immature north node desires. Yielding to the necessary dissolution of false paths allows your soul to reset on a vastly higher evolutionary frequency. Embodying authentic destiny, you emerge from the crucible with extraordinary psychological resilience, crystal clear direction, and unwavering purpose. Pluto fortifies your Rahu baseline, granting you the quiet, formidable power to step forward into the second half of life as a fully integrated, spiritually sovereign force. The Crucible of Destiny, Part 2, Karmic Transmutation, Systemic Dismantling, and Sovereign Rebirth. To fully comprehend the extraordinary transpersonal scope of transit Pluto square natal Rahu, the north node of the moon, one must look far beyond basic concepts of a temporary career detour, minor frustration with life direction, sudden anxiety about the future, or simple dissatisfaction with personal goals. In evolutionary and psychological astrology, a square represents an inescapable structural tension, a crisis of action that demands total internal, structural, and evolutionary adaptation. When an outer transpersonal planet like Pluto forms a square to the nodal axis, it places Pluto at the skipped step or Pluto at the bending. Natal Rahu represents your primary evolutionary mandate in this lifetime, your future trajectory, unfamiliar psychological territories, soul hunger, and the compelling horizon driving your highest potential. Natal Ketu, the south node, sitting directly opposite Rahu, represents your comfortable past life conditioning, ingrained talent, and outgrown instinctual safety nets. Pluto is the transpersonal engine of subterranean power, shadow integration, systemic dismantling, and radical rebirth. When transit Pluto forms a square to your nodal axis, it creates an intense, high-pressure friction chamber at the exact midpoint between your past and your future. Pluto plunges your long-term ambitions, subconscious survival mechanisms, karmic conditioning, and future trajectory into a fierce alchemical furnace. The universe effectively strips away all superficial ambitions, manipulative shortcuts, fear-based hesitation, and outgrown comfort zones, forcing you to burn away false personality layers and forge an unassailable baseline of authentic soul purpose and sovereign destiny. 1. The Crucible of Evolution, from obsessive ambition to subterranean soul truth. Because Rahu represents the insatiable hunger to expand into new experiential territory, Pluto's dynamic square operates as a relentless solvent against ego-driven ambition. The superficial goals, opportunistic shortcuts, or desperate status-seeking you constructed to secure safety or validation collapse under Pluto's penetrating pressure. This direct friction permanently restructures your psychological baseline. Eradication of performative and ego-driven goals. You become acutely aware of where your future aspirations were dictated by egoic greed, fear of powerlessness, or a desperate need to compensate for past life or childhood feelings of inadequacy. Pluto systematically dismantles these artificial motivations, leaving no room to pursue a life path that lacks deep soul truth. Confronting subterranean karmic shadows, unconscious terror of stepping into your true destiny, latent self-sabotage, or ancestral memories of catastrophic failure rise to the surface with volcanic intensity. Facing these raw subterranean shadows directly creates the necessary container for unprecedented emotional resilience, psychological wisdom, and true evolutionary alignment. 2. Power struggles, systemic disruption, and the shadow of manipulation. Rahu rules your drive to conquer new horizons, while Pluto demands total authenticity and structural depth. As transit Pluto squares your natal Rahu, your tolerance for disempowering societal scripts, manipulative professional shortcuts, or superficial life contracts vanishes entirely. This intense initiation reshapes your relationship with power, ambition, and long-term trajectory. Dismantling manipulative control and obsessive hunger, you are brought face-to-face with intense systemic and interpersonal power struggles. Whether confronting oppressive external authority figures blocking your progress or recognizing your own urge to force outcomes out of fear of failure, Pluto exposes where power has been weaponized and demands absolute psychological honesty. Reclaiming sovereign life purpose, you stop seeking external permission to step into your authentic calling or hiding in the comfortable, familiar patterns of the South Node. This transit empowers you to step into formidable self-mastery, strategic clarity, and unshakable alignment with your soul's true destiny. 3. Psychospiritual realignment, karmic purging, and evolutionary rebirth. Beyond restructuring your external goals, this alignment triggers a deep psychospiritual overhaul of your core psyche, burning out accumulated karmic debris, unconscious survival patterns, and outdated identity layers. Navigating this evolutionary process alters your baseline. Purging trapped karmic baggage, fighting the Plutonian pressure by clinging frantically to South Node comfort zones or recklessly forcing immature Rahu desires creates severe psychological distress and physical exhaustion. Yielding to the necessary dissolution of false paths allows your soul to reset on a vastly higher evolutionary frequency. Embodying authentic destiny, you emerge from the crucible with extraordinary psychological depth, unwavering purpose, and intuitive clarity. Pluto fortifies your Rahu baseline, granting you the quiet, formidable power to step into the second half of life as a fully integrated, self-directed force of nature. 4. Navigating the hazards of the square, avoiding obsessive panic and regressive paralysis. Because a square generates inescapable friction, the primary hazards of Pluto's square Rahu stem from engaging in obsessive power battles, falling into paranoid panic over your future, or retreating into stagnant past patterns out of fear of the unknown. Mastering this period requires radical self-honesty, psychological courage, and disciplined stewardship over your transformation. Resisting the trap of opportunistic manipulation, as internal tension peaks, the temptation to use manipulative tactics, force outcomes, or compromise your ethics to achieve Rahu's goals can be strong. True Plutonian mastery requires making deliberate, conscious shifts rooted in absolute integrity rather than desperate shortcuts. Surrendering outgrown life frameworks, clinging frantically to past identity layers, outgrown roles, or safety nets that Pluto is dismantling causes severe inner turmoil. Yielding to the natural evolutionary tide frees your energy to step into genuine purpose and fulfillment. 5. The permanent integration, master of the sovereign destiny. When transit Pluto completes its final pass square your natal Rahu, the intense alchemical crucible concludes, leaving behind a completely purified baseline of self-mastery, personal authority, and soul alignment. You emerge from the depths as an individual who possesses absolute clarity over their life's direction. The enduring gift of this alignment is the realization that true security and success are never built on external status, opportunistic shortcuts, or performative approval. It is an unshakable state of inner sovereignty, a subterranean fusion of deep Plutonian truth and conscious self-direction that allows you to stand firm as an empowered author of your own destiny, fully prepared to navigate the future with unassailable authenticity and quiet strength. 6. Subterranean evolution, deepening the karmic mechanics of the bending. Analyzing the square between transit Pluto and the nodal axis at its most structural level reveals an extraordinary evolutionary mechanic, the fierce collision between past conditioning/future horizon, the nodal axis, and subterranean power/systemic transformation, Pluto. When Pluto sits at the bending, squaring both Rahu and Ketu, it acts as the master key that unlocks a blocked evolutionary node. In previous life cycles or early life phases, a key psychological lesson, a skipped step, was bypassed due to fear, trauma, or over-reliance on South Node talents. Transit Pluto's square forces you to halt all forward movement until this skipped step is fully processed, integrated, and resolved. 7. The 3 phases of nodal transmutation. Because a square forces external events that mirror internal psychological blockages, this transit unfolds in a distinct 3-phase cycle of structural dismantling and rebirth. Phase 1. The encroaching stagnation. Initial approach. You begin to feel an unexplained sense of frustration, blockages, or emptiness in pursuing your long-term goals. The familiar methods you relied on no longer work, and attempts to force progress yield diminished returns. The ego attempts to compensate by working harder, seeking tighter control, or retreating into comfortable South Node habits. Phase 2. The crucible at the bending, exact aspect. The friction reaches a critical boiling point. An external catalyst, a major career crossroads, systemic disruption, loss of a false safety net, or profound existential reckoning, forces a complete confrontation. Pluto cleanly dismantles the specific false ambition, shortcut, or regressive comfort zone you were using to avoid stepping into true power. Phase 3. The rebirth of alignment, post-aspect integration. Having surrendered the need for artificial control, opportunistic shortcuts, or fear-based security, you experience a profound liberation of psychological energy. The vitality previously wasted on anxiety and forced ambition is now available to build an unassailable life rooted in true soul purpose. 8. Transmuting the Rahu shadow, obsession, delusion, and fear of the unknown. Rahu's shadow under intense Plutonian pressure manifests as a desperate attempt to manipulate your environment, chase shiny illusions, or force fame, wealth, and status to quiet an underlying terror of insignificance. Unintegrated, this energy devolves into obsessive fixation, cynical opportunism, or severe burnout. Pluto operates as an uncompromising alchemical agent throughout this transition. Exposing subconscious opportunism, Pluto exposes where you use networking, superficial status, or tactical gamesmanship to compensate for a lack of true internal substance or self-worth. Dismantling inherited karmic loops, it severs inherited generational patterns of survival anxiety, ambition driven by trauma, and societal conformity passed down through your ancestral lineage. Purifying capacity for purpose, your psyche is scrubbed clean of superficial distractions. What remains is a quiet, formidable capacity for authentic self-direction, deep resilience, and true destiny alignment. 9. The sovereign path, absolute embodiment. The final state achieved through transit Pluto square natal Rahu is the complete integration of karmic self-sovereignty. You no longer need to perform for societal validation, take desperate shortcuts, or fear the unfamiliar horizons of your life. When transit Pluto moves past its square to your natal Rahu, the evolutionary furnace cools. You emerge stripped of false security, deeply anchored in your authentic power, and standing firmly as an unassailable master of your own soul, purpose, and future destiny. Subscribe, like, and share.